Good evening, TDN listeners and viewers. Of course, uh, welcome to this weekend interview. First off, I owe you an apology for last week. Last week, the technology just did not cooperate. It just didn't cooperate. We were trying to come on, and the lighting was bad. You can still see a little bit of haziness. We've been troubleshooting it. The audio was okay, but the camera seemed to have an issue. And so I hope you missed me as much as I missed you. We just were not able to get a program out. So what I did was I thought it was important enough. I have the same guest from last week, um, Mr. Alvin Thomas, and tonight we are going to be talking about one. We're going to talk about the, I don't want to say fallout because it's not a nuclear bomb, but we're going to talk about the potential impact of the results of the U.S. presidential election. And then Alvin is also going to give us an update on the legal matter that has been filed in the courts in Dominica against, well, I say against, defendants were named. Four defendants were named. If you remember the last time that he was here, the Attorney General, the commissioners on the Electoral Commission, and so on, the Chief Election Officer, and so on, was filed challenging the constitutionality of the general elections in Dominica, both in 2019 and in 2022. So he's going to give us a little bit of a recap, but more importantly, an update of the status of that, because they are waiting for the court to respond. And so that's what I have on tap for you tonight. Welcome back, our regular listeners. It's always a pleasure to have you on. Those of you who are joining us for the first time, welcome as well. If you listen on the Nature Isle RVR Jams radio, on DigiPlay channel 59 carries this week in interview live, as well as online radio SBE in the Toronto market also carries this week in interview live. So big up to our collaborators and all of you who are not listening to us live, because so many people catch the this week in interview episode after the fact. It's like you're either working or there's something else that you are doing at the time, and so you make the time, you download the app, and you can go onto YouTube, you can go tdntv.net. It's also available on This Week in Interview Facebook page, so you can go click there and listen. And if there are folks that you know would love to be part, have listened to the program, send them the link as well. So, without much further ado, I want to bring up uh, my guest tonight. He's a regular on This Week in Interview, and every time he comes prepared. He comes with his backup information. Like when we used to go to grammar school, I wonder if they still do debates. And you have to debate. You have to stand up in front of the class or in front of the school and debate on a point. And you have to have your supporting evidence and say where you get it from. Credibility. Um, so it's always a pleasure to have Alvin, my dear friend. Alvin and I have known each other for decades now, and knew his kids when they were really young, and they're all married and have kids of their own now. That's how far back myself and Alvin go. So Alvin, it's always a pleasure to have you on, and I know my guests enjoy having you as well, because you come, like I say, you come prepared, you come forceful, and you are always sure of what you are talking about and what you're presenting, and you're able to bring it down and break it down so that it is digestible. So welcome back to This Week in Interview. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you very much for your warm welcome and your kind words. I appreciate immensely. Let me thank you and TDN Radio, the management and staff, and to your many listeners who are tuned in to the program this evening. It's always a pleasure to come on the program, and for that I am very grateful. I think, and you may have heard that so many times from me that you might get tired with it. But as a JC's, And that's an organization that is dear to my heart. I believe in that tenet that says service to humanity is the best work of life. And I think we all have our purpose here on earth. I think we all ask ourselves, what is your purpose? What purpose do you serve? In whatever capacity that you operate. And I think I can say my purpose is really to be of service to humanity. So it's always a pleasure to come on the program and to try to bring some clarity to some of the myriad of issues that surfaces time and time again, especially as it pertains to our homeland, Dominica, because no matter where we are, our heart is still in Dominica. And therefore, you and the many other persons, the guests on your show, are just as patriotic and concerned with developments that are taking place in Dominica. So it's always a pleasure to be here. So thank you, Tony.
Yes, and as you were talking, this song by the rivers of Babylon came to mind, where we sat and wept when we remembered Zion.
Yeah.
And in so many ways, Dominica is Zion.
Oh yeah.
If it's natural beauty, it's bountiful gifts in terms of fresh air and water and fruits and produce. And that's where we came from. That's where we are from. That's what makes us who we are. Whatever came from the soil into the food that we eat and make us from that perspective. And also the culture and the heritage that we inherited from our forebears, our ancestors. Veterans Day just went by, and I always wonder why we cannot honor the veterans of the wars that our ancestors fought on our behalf to break the shackles of slavery, to resist colonialism, and to carve out a place in a strange land where they were forcibly brought, and to be able to give us that gift of Dominica and the Caribbean. One of these days, my dream would be to really be able to do a veterans remembrance and recognition for our ancestors who fought that fight. And because it seems as though we have another fight to fight.
Absolutely. Yeah. And having said that, Tony, let me just say for those of our folks online listening, Dominica is in landmass is bigger than Singapore. Okay, Singapore is dry. Dominica have resources that Singapore would wish they have. Of course, now, as you know, they're one of the flourishing and economic countries in Asia. But they're smaller. It's a smaller country than Dominica. It has a population of what? 200, they're about 2 million.
What's 2 million?
Yeah.
I don't know what their population is.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Singapore has a pretty large population. I can always verify that eventually.
We'll ask our fact checkers to fact checkers.
Yeah,
so we don't need.
The point I'm trying to make, though, is that we have opportunities in Dominica that we can benefit from, and sometimes people of the view that we are up here in the U.S. not necessarily because we want to be there, but I'm saying if Dominica, for example, had the opportunities, economic, social, and elsewhere, for persons and the many Dominicans who are away, we would be a little Singapore as well. You see what I'm saying? So it's important that we
listen, our fact checkers say that we're way off. As of 2024, the population of Singapore is 6.04 million.
Oh my God. All right. So you see, so you see what I'm talking about. Now, 6.04 million people on a landmass that is smaller than Dominica. Dominica population now, I would say, I don't know, maybe 70,000. So clearly, we could be a very economic, vibrant country with, let's say, a population of 500,000. Let's just say 500,000. We don't want to go beyond that to like
Right.
Singapore. But
Right.
let's say um, um, 500,000 people. And it is important that we put that, we look at that within that context and in that perspective. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Let me, as you're in
And
Singapore.
Singapore was, without tripping you, Singapore was a very poor country several years ago, you know.
Hmm.
One may argue, of course, their political blah, 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 and all of that. But they are a country that do not have corruption. When the prime minister, what's his name, Chu, he died a couple years ago, the first place he started to eradicate corruption is at the government level. And he tell any minister that is found with corruption, they go to jail.
Hmm.
So it started at the top. But you were saying, Tony, go ahead.
No, no, no. What I was going to say is that all something another story about Singapore that's very relevant to Dominica is that Singapore doesn't have any fresh water, native fresh water of its own,
Absolutely.
and so all its water was imported. And you know
Absolutely.
what? You know what they did? They developed desalination to the point where anybody in the world who really wants to learn about desalination, guess where
Yes.
they have to go? They have to go to
Singapore.
Singapore because right now they are self-sufficient in fresh water.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So the point to bring the point home, so we can segue back into the discussion, is that when we were growing up in the Caribbean, one of the limitations that was handed down to us is that we're a small island, we're small economies, we have limited resources, and a lot of our economic growth was relied on how well we can go and negotiate grants, how we can go and negotiate soft loans or concessionary terms to finance our activities and our development. And that's where we came from a colonial type of perspective. Now, Dominica just celebrated their 47, 47,
46. 46.
46 year
76. Yeah.
of independence, right? We should be progressing from that to where, okay, it's like a child. You grow up, you're totally dependent on your parents, then you kind of try to go on your own, but you stumble, so you come back to them for help, which is the phase we were in the 70s and 80s. Right now we should have been up and running, where Dominica, I always say that a true measure when Dominica reaches to where it needs to be is when Dominica has to implement visa restriction to control who comes into the country to leave.
Mhm.
That is how, it's so much so that our people should not be looking to migrate out of the country. We should be looking to manage the influx of people coming into the country.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
that is an objective that would say that we are at a point where our development is where we would like it to be, where we can, as Dominican, stand up and be bold and say, I am Dominican and we are independent and we are self-sufficient in water, we are self-sufficient in food, we are
Mhm.
self-sufficient in education, and so on. And so, Alvin, that brings me to our discussion, right? And I like where you put it at Singapore, because what the Singapore thing illustrates is that the the fortunes of a people, the fortunes of a culture depends on your intellect, on your
Mhm.
ability to think. It doesn't depend on what resources you have in your country. Well, Dominica doesn't have oil, so what can we do? Or Dominica doesn't have gold, so what can we do? Or no, you use the resources of your people.
That's right.
You use the resources of your people, and you apply it to your surroundings. And if what you need is not in your country, you use the resources in your country to go and get it and bring it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so wh- when we talk about going forward and the challenges that a country like Dominica faces, we promised we would spend a few minutes and talk about the results of the US election. We're staring down the barrel of a second term of Donald Trump as president of the United States. What are your thoughts? Um, with that in mind?
Well, I mean, my first response would be that's what the people wanted. Okay, that's what the people, the American people wanted. That's what the American people voted for, and that is why it is so important, as we will
Right.
discuss later on, what the matter as it relates to the lawsuit filed against the 2019 and the 2022 elections in Dominica. Because at the end of the day, as I have said before in this program, election has consequences. The American people chose to do that. But I'll tell you more than that. What I will say as well, Tony, is that in my view, and that's just my opinion, somebody may differ with me, the American people voted out of outrage. And that's what happened. In any country, when a population is one might say their backs against the wall, and they are outraged, and they're not seeing how should I say, economic development. They're not seeing progress. They're not moving, especially, as we would say, the lower and the middle class citizens of a country. So again, if we may just digress a bit and look at Dominica, that is where Dominica is now. The American citizens voted out of outrage. They felt, because when one considers, and it takes us back to the electoral process and the system, although Trump had his thing and the GOP saying, oh, the election is rigged and all of that. The question I put before him now, was his result rigged? If you were taunting all along that the system is not good, the system is this and that. Now that you win, can we say the system was rigged and therefore your election is not good?
Right.
So
the reason why you won is because election was rigged.
Was rigged. Exactly. And I would submit, the first to submit, no, the electoral process in the United States is not rigged. Yes, you may have 1-2 instances where you might have something, but overall, generally, the election is not rigged. So the people voted out of frustration. At the end of the day, they felt that their economic means were not being met. Inflation was a problem. They go to the supermarket, they were paying more for food, they were paying more for rent, they were paying more for childcare, and all that kind of stuff. And I'll tell you what's more. Bear in mind, when Trump came in his first term, he met an economy that was doing well, which was handed over to him by Obama. Obama was there for 2 terms. He managed the economy very efficiently. Things were bouncing. We had no recession, nothing like that. When he came in, of course, in his first term, you had the housing crash and all of that. All of that got stabilized. And by his second term, the economy was on a footing that was good. So it's like a CEO coming in and you hand him a successful company and everything is going fine. And that is what folks have in their mind, that when Trump was there, the economy was good. But clearly, it wasn't a situation where he was responsible for allowing the economy good as it was. Notwithstanding that, they felt, well, hey, they were better off then and they are now. And as such, they vote along those lines. So it will be interesting to see how it all unfolds, given again against the background that the GOP now has the majority in the Senate. Today, I learned that they also got the majority of the House. They got the White House. He got a popular vote. And one might say, quote unquote, he got the Supreme Court on his side. He has more judges sitting on the Supreme Court. And based on the way the Supreme Court has been handing down decisions, seems to be more favorable towards it. So it will be interesting to see how the whole thing unfolds. Hence the question, Tony, those of us like you and I and all the many Dominicans that are in the US need to have an option. Like they say, you drive, you have to have a stepney. If you get a flat, you want to know you have a stepney that you could change your flat tire. So I remember we had a song before that used to sing, "A Deputy is Essential." you know.
mhm,
So so we have to have a fallback, and that is why it's so important for us to be having the conversation that we're having in light of what is happening in our country, Dominica, our homeland, which I'm sure many of us would, if the opportunities were there, like it is in Singapore, where you have 1.77 million non-residents in Singapore, over a million,
right.
that that many of us would have been preferred to be in Dominica, where we can make a contribution to our country, its development, and be happy. In the next few months, winter is eating us. We won't have to deal with that cold, and we can live. A lot of Dominicans are now living Dominica, and they go where? Antigua to work and doing pretty
Yeah,
well. They go to St. Martin, they're
they
doing
do
pretty
well.
well. They go to St. Kitts, they go to pretty well. I mean, I have this friend of mine, his daughter works for a US company based in Chicago, but the company also have branch offices in the region. One is in St. Kitts, so she works out of St. Kitts. They're trying to get her back into the main office in Chicago, and she's kicking hells. She said, "Boy, I don't want to go back up there at all. Life is so good on St. Kitts."
Right.
She's been paid, I guess, in US dollars. She enjoys the life in St. Kitts. Go to the beach, go to there, go to there. You think she wants to go back in cold Chicago in the winter months or anything like that? She don't want that. So I'm saying all of this to say it will be interesting to see how it unfolds. But having said that, those of us listening tonight and can share with others, we must ensure and do whatever it takes to ensure that our country, Dominica, does not become a red China with the influx of Chinese, does not become a dictatorship, that it can still be a place that with tremendous potential, where one day those of us who want to return and contribute to the development of this country can do so. Hence the reason that I do all what I'm doing in terms of the issues that comes up in Dominica and need to be addressed and spoken about.
Yeah. And what I would add to that, Alvin, is that in life we learn that we shouldn't dwell on the things that we cannot control. So the American people voted, and they voted for a Republican, a red wash, Donald Trump, the Senate, the House, the Supreme Court, the popular vote. There's nothing that Dominica can do about that.
True.
What Dominica has to do is to decide, where does Dominica want to be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 15 years, in 20 years. And after we've decided that, we can look at the US and the UK and China and everybody else and decide, how can we position ourselves in relationships with those powers and our fellow Caribbean countries, how we position our relationship with them, with Martinique and Guadeloupe and CARICOM. We have to be able to decide how we're going to position ourselves so that we can move Dominica from where it is towards where we would like to see Dominica in 5, 10, 15, 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is discussion that we really have to have. And it comes back full circle, is that we may, some of us may not like the way Americans voted, but the fact is that they had the freedom to vote their choice.
That's right.
And so that is what we're saying, that Dominicans should be given the same freedom to vote their choice, just like Americans. And they may choose to vote for the same party that's in power right now for another 4 or 5 elections.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the point is that if the citizens and the people cannot be confident that those election victories were received in a free and fair manner, it gives a tint and a stain on the country in two ways. One, the people that are in power feel like they're invincible, so they have no incentive to perform. And two, the citizens feel like they're helpless to do anything about it, and so they become despondent and they're not motivated to give their best. So that is what I would say in relation to Trump being president, or if it was Kamala, it would be the same thing.
Right. Right. No, you're absolutely correct, Tony. You're absolutely right. And I would say now, if I may just kind of just segue into the matter as it relates to Dominica,
Mm-hmm.
more specifically in the election. And
Mm-hmm.
that is why it is so important, because elections are at the heart of a democracy. Elections that are free, fair, and transparent is at the heart of a democracy. And if we do not have, or if the citizens do not have confidence in the process, in the system, then we don't have a democracy. We have a
Right.
dictatorship. We have
Right.
tyranny. We have
Mm-hmm.
chaos. And it is absolutely no doubt. I challenge anyone listening tonight or listening at some other time to say to me that the process that we have in Dominica as it relates to our election and the system and the process is free and fair. Because for the last almost 2 decades, or at least a decade and a half, we have had repeatedly reports upon reports upon reports upon reports that speaks to the question of fixing what we have, making it more transparent. Okay, and I will point out specific areas as it relates to that. Okay, and some people may have asked and continues to ask, well, why are you guys bothering if an election that was still 2019 or 2022? And as I tried to explain, and as I did on your previous program and other programs, this matter goes at the heart of our Constitution. It goes at the heart of the country's Constitution. The Constitution of any country is the supreme law of the land. Nothing else takes precedent over that. Nothing. And if any citizen feels aggrieved, feels that their constitutional right have been violated, they have that right, inalienable right under the Constitution to take this matter to the courts. And that is provided for in section 103 of our Constitution. It is clearly stated there at section 103 of the Dominica Constitution. And the Constitution goes further at section 116 rather, to state clearly at section 116 that Dominica shall be a sovereign democratic republic. That's what it is.
Exactly.
That's a one-liner there. Dominica shall, it not say may or will or want,
Or
shall
should. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
be a sovereign democratic republic. And it goes on at section 17 to say this constitution is the supreme law and subject to the provision of this constitution. If any other law is inconsistent with the constitution, this constitution shall prevail, and the other law shall, to the extent of the inconsistency, be void. So what we are saying, as when I came on the previous program that you had, there are four claimants or plaintiffs, as we might want to call them.
Four people that's bringing the case.
That's taken the case, representing a broad cross section of the country. And they're doing so, as I indicated the last time, on behalf of the people of Dominica, because our Constitution, again, if I may refer to it, and it's important, not many of us take time to read or understand the Constitution or familiarize ourselves with it. The Constitution of Dominica begins, the preamble, before you look at anything else, the preamble states the Constitution of the Commonwealth of Dominica, whereas the people of Dominica, that word people is there, right up, first line, whereas the people of Dominica, and it goes on to explain A, B, C, D, E. The point I'm making is that this matter is being taken on behalf of the people of Dominica. And basically, we are saying that And the matter is presented as a constitutional motion. So we are filing a motion before the court, a constitutional motion saying to the courts, we believe certain sections of the Constitution were violated. And the sections we are referring to in specific has to deal with, as it relates to the electors list. Based on the laws of the country, the electors list is not dealt with in conformity with the Constitution. We're saying also that the qualification as pertain at section 32, I think it is, that deals with who can and cannot vote.
Right.
And one of the major criteria they're stated, let me just see if I can pull it up very quickly, deals with the question of
just tell them.
section,
Give the yeah.
Section 33. Section 33, subsection 2A. Every Commonwealth citizen of the age of 18 years or upward who possesses such qualification relating to residence or domicile in Dominica as Parliament may prescribe shall, unless is disqualified by Parliament from registration as a voter for the purpose of electing representatives, be entitled to be registered as such a voter in accordance with the provision of any law in that behalf, and no other persons may so be registered. So it is quite clear who can vote. You have to be a resident, you have to be domiciled in Dominica. So we believe that section is being violated, and we're asking the court to issue a declaration on this particular matter. And then, of course, we have to deal with the question of identification, voter ID. So, in a nutshell, we are seeking some 18 declarations of the court. That matter was filed. 18 declaration, yeah.
Okay.
Specific area. We have other areas, for example, access to the national state-owned radio, the question of fairness under the Constitution as well, discrimination. So we're asking the court on that matter. And we filed back on the 4th of September. The motion was filed in the court back on 4th of September. And the court was supposed then, 4 weeks from the filing or thereafter, issue a date for the hearing. Up until the time we filed what was called a certificate of urgency, we had not received the date for the hearing. So on the 30th of October, lead counsel representing the claimant filed in court what is called a certificate of urgency. And basically what a certificate of urgency is whereby a matter is presented before the courts, and counsel feel that that matter is sufficiently interested, it's grave, it can have public implications and all of that. We heard talk of recently of snap elections and all that kind of crap taking place in Dominica. We felt that that matter is sufficiently urgent to warrant what is called a hearing. And as such, on the 30th of October, we filed what is called a certificate of urgency. With the filing of a certificate of urgency, it is expected that the court, within a week or right thereafter, to issue again a date for the hearing. To date, we have not. And that brings me now to the question, based on the constitution I said, to the question of rule of law. The rule of law in Dominica is something that we have to look at. I believe I was on your program a couple of months ago where I made reference to the fact that the sitting judge, Judge William, earlier this year at the January Assizes or thereabout, gave a scathing report on the manner in which the judiciary was behaving as it relates to matters brought before the magistrate's court and the delay and people on remand in the state prison for as many as 10 years for a crime, an alleged crime that they said to have committed.
Right.
So again, if I may just borrow from my GC's creed, we have a tenet that says government should be of laws rather than of men.
Right.
So there has to be a rule of law. So clearly, when the matter is filed in the courts, and given how the system behaves in Dominica, put it this way, there's what you call a court administrator. When a matter is filed, the court administrator gets the matter, the file, goes to the judge, and says to him, well, Your Honor, this matter has been filed. It seems to be a very urgent matter. Look at the defendants, because in that case, we have 9 defendants in this matter, starting with the president, the attorney general, the commissioners. So that is a very urgent matter, which ought to have gone before the judge and look at his calendar and say, well, impress upon the judge the urgency of this matter, and that matter be placed on the docket.
On the judge's calendar. Alvin, I'm pushing up against a break. When you come back, we're going to dive deeper into that case.
Yes,
folks. My guest tonight is Mr. Alvin Thomas, and we talked about the elections in the U.S. and a lot of people were frightened about that result. And I'm saying there's no need to be afraid. What we have to focus on is what we can control. And one of the things that we can control or we can influence is what's going on in Dominica, if you're from Dominica, what's going on in Grenada, if you're from Grenada, or St. Vincent, or from the Caribbean, because you could be Grenadian and decide that you want to settle in Dominica, but what's going on in the country, in the region. And so if we don't control the things that we don't influence the things that we can influence, there's nothing we can do about who the American people vote for. And the example of that is that people should have the freedom to vote for who they feel, because you have dictatorship where one man can say, these people, they're not smart enough, they don't know what they're doing. If I give them a chance to vote, they're going to vote this fool in and destroy the country. I know what's better for them, so I'm doing it for their own good, to prevent them from exercising their freedom. And the answer to that is no. Let them make their mistake. Whether you think it's a mistake or not, let them make their mistake. Let them learn from their mistake, and then 5 years later they will vote the person out. Or if the suffering hasn't been enough, they'll vote them in again. And so we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to learn about something that we can do, because Alvin is the spokesperson for a group of folks who have brought an action before the courts, asking them to look at the last 2 elections that were in Dominica and to make declarations, 18 declarations that will determine the constitutionality of those elections, which would inform and influence the behavior of upcoming elections. And that is what we have to understand. So let's take a quick word from the sponsors, and when we come back, we are going to see what the status is of that case and what you can do to assist in making sure that case is adjudicated and given a fair hearing in the courts in Dominica. So stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Presented by.
People say I've got a great smile. Well, I have to say, this is all thanks to the professional team at Beacon Dental Group right here in Dorchester, Massachusetts. I've got world-class dental care. Beacon Dental Group has expert and caring staff dedicated to providing the most advanced and satisfactory treatment in all aspects of oral health. Their services are designed to meet your needs and give you a perfect smile, too. General checkups, cosmetic surgery, Gemini laser service, and advanced procedures, all in a state-of-the-art facility. Call or visit Beacon Dental Group today, 1026 Blue Hill Avenue, Dorchester, Massachusetts, or call 617-282-2146 for a smile that lights the world.
A smart house run by a vengeful AI, a mute witness to an act of unspeakable evil. A breadfruit thief is haunted. A young man unwittingly creates a god. Giant crapos terrorize a community. A witch seeks revenge on her neighbors, and much more. The Piton Noir Writing Collective is thrilled to announce the release of the third book in their acclaimed anthology series, The Flying Crapo. Flying Crapo, Heroes and Monsters. Now available for purchase on Amazon.com. Get your copy today and embark on a journey filled with heroes, monsters, and the magic of the Caribbean.
How much Dominican history do you know? Want to learn some fun facts? We have a great and fun way to test your knowledge and learn more about our history. Get your copy of Dominic Anu, Dominica in Puzzle. Fun for the whole family. Available now on Amazon.com. Visit pushpast10.com to learn more. Email us at dominicainpuzzle@gmail.com or call 877-698-9894. Looking to promote your business, engage current customers, and reach new people? Well, look no further. From the basic presentation to a fully fledged advertisement, use your video ads to attract customers. At Man's Audiovisual Productions, we do just that. We produce videos for business and event promotions, product demo videos, animated explainer videos, fundraiser ads, and much, much more. Engage your clients and sell online. We customize the video to match your brand design. Guaranteed to play flawless on all devices, including smart TVs. Contact us at telephone number 203-690-4342 or 767-245-6238. Visit our website, mansaudiovisual.com, or email us at derekvideo@gmail.com.
Get ready for an electrifying thriller. A fearless New York attorney takes on corrupt corporate giants fighting for the powerless. Can this seasoned attorney and his team take down a monstrous company and its powerful leader? What will be the final verdict? What price will our heroes pay? Find out as you turn the pages of The Trust by Sam George. Get your copy of The Trust today from Amazon.com.
Welcome back, listeners, and we want to say thank you to our sponsors for keeping us on the air. And while you're at it, we know we at TDN are always trying to bring you additional information and entertainment. You know, the ever popular Dissect show is restarting its season 5 this Saturday at 7 p.m. on tdnradio.net. Tune in to the Dissect with Loveless and his wonderful co-host. They always have one great shows where Dissect is they bring artists on and they bring you behind the scenes and really dissect the career and the life of the people behind the music. And so tune in this Saturday at 7 p.m. tdnradio.net. And also, I don't know if you have been tuning in, we've had a wonderful new addition to our programming. Miss Kathy Robinson has started her program. I think she's had 3 programs so far, called the Youth Effect. The Youth Effect on TDN Radio, TDN TV. You can tune in anywhere that you see This Week in Interview. She's also on there. The name of the program is the Youth Effect. and the host is Miss Kathy Robinson, and she has young people on there just really demonstrating to us older folks about social media and about communicating with them and what entices them, how we can better communicate with them. And so you should check it out, 8:30 p.m. every Monday night. Uh, the Youth Effect with Miss Kathy Robinson. It's a wonderful, wonderful program. She's had three brilliant programs so far, and we look to that program really, really growing legs. And Kathy, using her tremendous background and experience and qualification in education and in working with young people to make a huge difference with our folks. So tune in if you know a young person that would benefit from that camaraderie. Share that information with them, and also if you have young kids or nieces or nephews, grandkids, you can tune in with them. I'm sure it will be an hour very, very well spent. To get back on track for tonight's program, my guest is Mr. Alvin Thomas. Alvin is no stranger to TDN. He's usually on here. And we all know when he comes, he comes with his information and his references as if he's waiting for somebody to challenge him. Challenge me if you dare, because I know I can knock you back for six. You know, Alvin is a consummate, passionate, source community person, civic minded individual. His entire career, his life has been dedicated to that as a civil servant in Dominica, as the Secretary General of the um, Public Service Union, as Postmaster General, as Assistant Secretary in the Ministry of Tourism, and on and on and on. And he came to the US and also served. Currently, he runs a company called OptiServe. I think he'll tell me the
Optic
correct name.
Precision. Optic
Opti
Precision.
Precision, where if you want glasses, beautiful, wonderful, well-fitting glasses, you can get your prescription to Alvin, and he will get you your glasses at much reduced prices, and you know he'll send it to you in Dominica. So even if you are in Dominica, you can once you can get
No
your
matter where you are.
prescription to him, you can get it to you. And if you're in the US especially, even if you're not in Atlanta where he's based, you could be in New York City, anywhere. Very, very easy to get some really fashionable glasses, but effective and well made, and some of the top brands at really family rates and prices. So I had to let you know that this man wears many hats. The amount of times you see him working in the fields in civic society, commenting on what he sees as atrocities, um, in forums where he can inspire and produce hope among our people. He's still in the background, also contributing and helping folks who have maybe some vision challenges or some vision needs. So Opti Precision. When you get a chance, you put the contact info in the chat, Alvin.
Yeah.
Let us
Definitely.
encourage folks
Yeah.
to.
Thank you, Tony.
So
Mm.
I know, it's our pleasure. That's what we have to do. We have to build each other up, and then we're going to have an OptiPrecision. Before we know it, we have an OptiPrecision outlet in Dominica, and
Yep.
and before we know it, we're making lenses and shaping lenses because
Yep.
you have experience working in a plant where they
Yeah.
made
That's my
lenses
background. Yeah.
for eyewear. Yeah. So why
License
can't we
optician. Yeah.
license optician? So why can't we
Manage
do that
labs
in Dominica?
all over the US. Well, in Georgia primarily.
Mhm, mhm,
Manage
mhm.
optical labs and all of that. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thanks, man, Tony. I
Why,
appreciate
why
it.
can't we have a lab in Dominica where we shape
Well,
and
like I
create
told you,
lenses?
that's our goal, that's our objective. And
Yeah.
as we speak, we desperately want to open a shop in Dominica. Um, but we're hoping, against all of this economic background and all of that. So, we kind of
It's in the
excited. So we're exploring it
it's
and see.
definitely in the cards. Definitely in
Yeah,
the cards.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
But
When we retire back to Dominica, that's one enterprise we're going to have to create some
I know,
employment,
I know,
some
I know.
highly skilled employment for our people.
And I'll tell you, I mean, even right now as we speak now, I got 3 clients from St. Kitts that's getting their eyewear done through us.
Right.
So it's not just even Dominica, throughout the region, St. Kitts, St. Lucia, the region, you know,
yeah,
and
yeah.
it is an industry that is very viable, I would say. So whether we like it or not, at some point we're going to need some visual, you know, corrections. And we do in addition to prescription, we do non-prescription and contact lenses as well. So
Oh,
we did
really?
9 yards. Yeah, we do contact lenses as well.
Sunglasses and
Sunglasses, prescription, non-prescription, everything. All the accessories that goes with it, the whole 9 yards. Yeah. But let's
that's
get
awesome.
back
And
onto.
no, but it's not about, it's not getting back. It's part of the
I'm sorry.
conversation.
Yeah.
Because creating an environment in Dominica where people feel that their opinion matters, creating an environment in Dominica where the courts are functioning the way they should function, the rule of law is allowed to carry its
Right.
justice, opens an environment where people can, like you and other people, will feel comfortable coming into the country to
And doing
invest
business.
and to do business.
And to
But
invest.
if you have an environment where the people feel like, if those that vote for the government obviously wouldn't feel it, but the half of them that don't vote for the government feel that their choices wasn't given a fair chance. People like who take matters to the court and see their efforts being stymied. So a businessman come in and say, okay, so I invest money in this country, and if I partner with somebody and that person turns rogue on me, what hope do I have of going to the court to get redress? And if you're not confident in that, what would inspire you to invest in that country?
Absolutely, absolutely. And not only that, if it's a situation where you have to have favors with the government, and because you may not agree with a particular policy or voice a position, then your business is sabotaged or frustrated. So, I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right, Tony. I mean, you're absolutely right. And I know many of us who are in the US, there are many of us in the US who have the necessary skills, training, expertise, business, capital, you name it, and in a position to go back home and to assist and make a difference. But there has to be that enabling environment. There, like you said, there has to be an environment where there's rule of law, where people feel confident that their investment would be, would be well respected. And it's not a question whether you have to support the government or don't support the government to get that. That's besides the point, I mean, look at, for example, you have one specialized, experienced ENT specialist in Dominica in the person of Dr. IP. One specialized ENT. And just because he doesn't see or agree with the government position on some matters, he's denied to operate in the one hospital that we have. Can you imagine that?
Right.
I mean, this is it's just madness.
And so a
we don't have
businessman
5 or 6 like in America. One we got.
And in an environment like Dominica, where somebody sees that, they're very reluctant to invest.
And he's a Dominican, he's not a foreigner.
Yeah.
He's back home contributing. So
it really dampens the economic activity, and by extension, the population suffers because there's less economic activity. And the secretary that would work in an office would go to the shop and buy some bread or some eggs, and the shopkeeper would get the money to go buy. It just stifles all the progress in the country. And so, Alvin, so the case that you were here talking about is a matter that was brought before the courts on the 4th of October.
On the 4th of September. The first filing was done on the 4th of September.
And it is expected that within 4 weeks the court would issue a date. But that date is a little flexible. 1 week on, or say it might take 5 weeks, it might take 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But it took, after almost 8 weeks.
That's right.
You went back to the court and say, hey, we filed this matter and we believe it's urgent. Can you please expedite the process so that we can get a hearing?
Yes.
And the court, and that was done 2 weeks ago?
On the 30th of October. right
Yeah,
before the independence holiday. Yeah, 2 weeks
so
about
exactly 2 weeks ago. That's
that. Yes,
14 days ago,
yes.
right? So it's been 2 weeks, and when a certificate of urgency is filed, it means that you almost have to go wake up the judge in his bed and bring him and tell him, come to court. We have an urgent matter that needs to be heard because somebody's dying or something is happening or there is a miscarriage of justice that can happen if it's not heard in. And 2 weeks, there's nothing urgent about 2 weeks.
And this is not a matter, Tony, that should take its normal course.
Right.
And again, you heard, like I said earlier, there was talk about snap elections and all of that. And yes, the prime minister has that prerogative to call elections. Again, that is another matter that we can discuss in a complete different program. To what extent? To what extent is the constitution not being abused? Because we can discuss that. What was the underlying, or what is the underlying reason for a snap election for any government?
Look at the question that one of the
Yes, I
viewers
believe it did. I believe it had an impact. To answer directly, I believe it did, because on the program before, I referenced several times the CCJ's report, and one of the things that the CCJ said at section let's see now, at section 77 of their report, they said here that, moreover, without free and fair election, the preambular value of the creation and maintenance of and respect for lawfully constituted authority would be fatally undermined. The consequences of such a denial that a reflection on Caribbean history demonstrates include loss of legitimacy, public unrest, and even revolt. And it was clear that Dominican sent a message saying, we are not going to stand by and take any snap election this time around again. And we're prepared to go down the road fighting. And I guess he got the message, he heard the message that this wasn't going to go down well. And based on that, and he knows the climate on the climate on the ground is not favorable to him. I don't care whoever you speak to, notwithstanding all this little charade that took place on Sunday there. That's just fluff. That's just fluff. Okay. Now let me share something here with your audience, listening audience. Tony, there's a book, and I don't know if you have come across it yet, but maybe you might want to get a copy. It is called The Constitution, the Government, and You. And it's a book that was published back in 2007 by Mr. Alex C. Lawrence.
Isn't that the Prime Minister's lawyer?
No, well, I'm not sure. I don't know. But what I do know, he's a commissioner on the Electoral Commission.
Electoral Commission.
He's an attorney, and he's a commissioner on the commission. Okay? Now, that book speaks of, it says, the Constitution, the Government, and You. Very interesting. Hear what he says in chapter 1 of the book as it relates to Constitution. And very briefly, citizens should be vigilant to ensure that the government and public authority do not act in a manner which breach or undermines the Constitution. So we're filing a constitutional motion. That's what we're filing, because we felt it was breach. And he's telling us we must be vigilant. Enforcing the fundamental rights and freedom. Any person who alleges that any of his fundamental rights and freedom have been breached, is being breached, or is likely to be breached, has the right to apply to the court for redress. That's Alex Lawrence writing, penning that, you know. Who freedom has been breached, is being breached, or is likely to be breached, has the right to apply to the High Court. So the claimants in that matter is saying, we believe our constitutional right has been breached. So we're applying to the High Court. He goes on to say, the High Court has very wide constitutional power and do whatever is just and appropriate to ensure that one's fundamental rights and freedoms are protected. The Justice William that I referred to earlier had this to say when he made a comment as it relates to rule and law. The rule of law is important and the rule of law can't be upheld in such circumstances, meaning that the delay that he experienced and he saw with matters that are presented before the courts. The rule of law is being undermined by persons who must know better and can do better. And that is why earlier I referenced the court administrator has the responsibility to take this matter file to the judge and say, Your Honor, seems to be a very urgent matter. Let's find a space on your calendar to have this matter determined.
Right.
On chapter 3 of Alec Lawrence's book, the ability of Dominicans to elect the government of their choice is a very precious and important right. It must be cherished, exercised, and protected by all citizens at all times. Dominicans did not always have that right. It was only through the struggles and sacrifices of our forefathers that all adult Dominicans were eventually given the right to vote in 1951. No party should set out to win. You hear what he says? No party should set out to win. Indeed, no party should be allowed to win in an election at any cost. No matter how many lies are told, reputation ruined, or crimes committed, democracy demands integrity, both in the party in government and in the opposition.
In the opposition. All right. So,
one other one which is important, let me just take this last one, which is very important. On chapter 11, where he talks of our duty as citizens, because most of the times, a lot of what's happening is because citizens laid back. They don't take action. They don't get engaged. The citizens in America got engaged. We may not have liked the way they engaged, but they got engaged and they say, hey, we want to vote for the GOP. It is the duty of every Dominican to strive to be a patriot, no matter where he or she is. Once you're a Dominican, it's your duty to be a patriot, whether you're speaking from New York where you are or I'm in Atlanta. A patriot is a person who loves, supports, and serves his country and is prepared, if necessary, to die for it. Those are the words of Alec Lawrence, to die for it. Now, I know there's an issue that, I don't want to diffuse what our discussions are, but we had an issue in Dominica today where a young man was detained for making comment, blah, blah, blah. But he's saying there, as a patriot, you must be prepared to die for your country. Patriotism cannot be conferred upon a person, neither can it be taken away from him. Every Dominican is born with the inherent ability to be a patriot. Tony, these are powerful words, And my question is, I would hope he still subscribed to that. I do subscribe to it 100%. I'm sure you do. But these are the words of Alec Lawrence.
And he's named as a defendant in the
And he's named as a defendant in the matter.
Mm-hmm.
So you see how ironical history has a way of presenting itself. And here we are today, full circle, dealing with a matter that touches on our Constitution, touches on our democracy, and touches on our duty as citizens. This is what exactly this matter is all about. And I'm hoping, and this is not a partisan issue. Let me make it quite clear. This is not a partisan issue. This is an issue as it affects our Constitution, one's democratic right, our democracy, and as such, we are saying to the courts that, hey, we got an issue. Give some clarity on that.
So, Abin, let me ask you, if the court doesn't respond to your filing of your certificate of urgency, is there any other, what's the next?
There are some other legal options that we can explore and exploring, which I'm not privy to.
No, I wouldn't want you to.
But let me just say, while you ask that very good question, because that's a very good question you've asked. Back in 2019, when the matter was filed in 2019, as you recalled, the judge at the time, Glasgow, threw out the matter. So he did not even give the plaintiff then a hearing to say, well, okay, You file a matter. Let's hear you. Prove your case. He didn't even give them that opportunity. He threw the matter out. So the matter was termed in legal language an interlocutory decision, meaning that there was no decision. So as a consequence, we could not appeal that matter to the OECS Court of Appeal. Because there's nothing to appeal. There's no decision. What are you appealing? So counsel representing the plaintiffs and the claimant made a request of the CCJ, the Caribbean Court of Justice, which is like the Supreme Court here in the States. Because if you take a matter at the High Court, depending on how it goes, win or lose, you could then appeal to the OECS Court of Appeal, win or lose, then you go to the ultimate court, which is the CCJ, like the Supreme Court. And that's where the decision ends. So we approached the CCJ and says to the CCJ, look here, man, this is very serious. This is a very serious matter. And could you please give us a hearing? Could you hear us? Could we present before you? What is it? And the CCJ agreed. And in their determination, hear what the CCJ said at section 49. And mark you, the CCJ is not a one-man judge like at the lower court. At the first place where you file, there is one judge. He determines right or wrong based on the arguments presented. When you go to the Court of Appeal, then you may have a panel of one or two things. When you go to the CCJ, you have a panel of at least 5 judges. In that case, in 2022, when the judges, the justices, there was, like you have the Supreme Court. It's a similar setup like that.
Right.
A judge may agree or not, but then the final decision will come out of the CCJ, whatever decision is. Hear what the CCJ said at section 49. Although it is the case that the provision conferring jurisdiction on the Court of Appeal to hear appeals in election petition are to be found in the Constitution, and those provision appears to admit no exception to the requirement that only final decisions may be appealed. So they're saying that only final decisions can be appealed. So there was no final decision. They went on to say, it is also the case that the Constitution prescribes exactly what Lawrence is saying in his book. It is also the case that the Constitution prescribes that every person in Dominica is entitled to a fair hearing within a reasonable time by an independent or impartial tribunal. A rather high value is to be placed on this fundamental right to a fair and an independent and impartial tribunal. That right is not only fundamental, it is a condition for enjoying and securing the enjoyment of other rights. It follows then that if the appellants complain that in the hearing at the interlocutory aspect of their election petition, their enjoyment of this fundamental right was compromised, then the Court of Appeal should have assumed jurisdiction to consider that complaint. That's the CCJ saying. The CCJ is basically saying this thing was so fundamental to the Constitution and so important that you could not have just on your own as the judge just throw it out and say you're not hearing them. They will deserve to hear a hearing. And they made reference at section 50 to a Court of Appeal decision, which is referred to as the Exeter versus Games case, where the judge in that particular case was expected to recuse himself from the hearing application to strike out the petition. So what they're saying is that Justice Glasgow, which was the judge at the time, if he felt that the matter being presented to him had certain biases of whatever, he should have recused himself from the case and allow the case to proceed. Okay? A prominent place in a democratic society is pivotal for public confidence in the administration of justice.
Right. So what we're saying is that Dominica is running a risk where its citizens are going to lose confidence in the judiciary system, where people feel that where people feel that they don't have redress to go to the court when there's a grievance.
So therefore, they have to take up their cutlass or their gun.
And the next, and when that happens, people are not just going to say, well, okay, there's nothing I can do. People are going to take matters into their own hands.
Absolutely.
So folks, what we have to understand is that we don't have to be a supporter or a non-supporter of a government to see why it is important. You may think that those guys don't have a case, those guys are foolish, those guys are what, but you have to be able to support
Due
the right
process.
for the court to tell that to them after hearing, giving them an opportunity to hear their argument. It cannot be that the court can just ignore them, because what happens when the court ignores them and somebody is really feeling aggrieved? What is the answer to that? And so what is at risk? What is at risk is the very rule of law in Dominica.
Absolutely. Absolutely. A very serious matter, which should not be allowed to continue. As a matter of fact, I had a private conversation with a prominent attorney in Dominica, and she expressed that same concern. The fact that matters that, because if for example, a matter is filed in the court, and you see that matter has one of the defendants as the Attorney General of the country, who is supposed to be the person in charge of the law, and a matter is filed in the court challenging and have a defendant as the Attorney General, so he has to come in court and defend himself. You also have the president of the country. Clearly, that is a matter of serious importance. That would say to you as a court administrator,
we need to clearly air on this thing.
Let me address this.
So that cloud doesn't continue to hang over the government.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. But let me. I don't want to cast any aspersion at this stage tonight on the program, except to say again, I explained the process in terms of when a matter is filed and what is the protocol. Listen to what, again, Alec Lawrence said at chapter 9 of his book, where he refers to under the heading, the public service, employment in the public service. And I'm saying so against the background of, as I said, there's a court administrator who is responsible to discharge that first step of the matter with the judge. Contrary to the popular belief, a minister of government has no power to employ persons on behalf of the government. If this happens, it is because the proper functionaries has improperly delegated or abdicated that duty to the minister, or is allowing the minister to dictate to him. This is unlawful. So I'm simply saying that to say that, and I hope that's not the case, if, as we say it, ministers of government, starting all the way at the top, have a hand in how the public service should run or not run, and therefore when a matter is filed in the court, whoever is responsible, that public officer, to do his or her work, has to take his instruction or orders from somebody else and say, well, hey, a matter is filed. Leave it there. Put it in the bottom drawer. Don't discuss it. Don't bring it up. Alec Lawrence is saying this is unlawful.
It's unlawful. And so Alvin, in that sense, though, where we have all of those things happening, we have the judges giving scathing reports on people who are remanded in custody for 10 years. You know what I want to bring that analogy. Is in those countries where you have a family that's ruling the country, and that family is the richest family in the world because the resources of the country is used up and spent as if it belonged to that family. And yeah, those people in that country, there are provisions to provide them with a certain level of a minimum level of care and lifestyle that they don't fall below. But we see that, is that what we want to happen in Dominica?
Exactly.
Because access to justice is a resource.
That's right.
So you don't want the country to get to a place where only a certain group of people can go to the court. When there is a case that deals with them, it's hurriedly done before the court. In a week, in 2 weeks, there's a hearing, and when there's a matter, there are other matters. It's dragged along. Somebody is sitting in court, in jail for 10 years. That person has a mother, they have a father, they have children, they have brothers, they have sisters. Can you imagine that it is your brother or your sister that's sitting in jail for 10 years without a hearing?
I know. And like they say, justice delayed is justice denied.
Yeah. It's not a statistics, it's a person. And Dominica is a very small place. No matter what it is that person is accused of, the person deserves
A hearing, a fair
a
hearing.
hearing.
Yeah.
And it's delayed for 10 years. And the judge made the magistrate, he made a report calling it out, and he did a second one. And nobody in the society is picking up that report and saying, hey, we were not aware that was going on. Or
Let's
now that
fix
he's
it.
mentioned it,
Let's fix it.
let's fix it. Nobody's saying that. The report is presented and everybody just watch it fall on the floor.
Yeah.
It kick up a little dust, and then the dust settling, still lying on the floor.
So that is why, Tony, the citizen, the people have to remain engaged.
Yes.
We have to stay engaged. And although some folks might say, well, Tony, you're doing that program every week. Matt, you're doing that program. This other person doing that program. You're talking and talking. You have to constantly remain engaged. I mean, take Trump. Again, he may not be the best example to use. But Trump remained engaged for the last 10 years. And look, he remained engaged. He might have fake information.
Or the media engaged him.
Or the media engaged him. So we have to remain engaged. And one of the things, and vigilant, these are the words that Alec used in his book. I saw one of your guests put a note on the thing and say Alec Lawrence should be reminded of these words in his book. He seemed to have divorced himself from penning them. His word don't align with his action. And that may be true based on what she's saying, but the written word is what it is. It's written there. And that is why we have to remind him and we have to reference it to say, well, to him, what have happened between then and now to give you a different perspective? Are you telling me now that the Constitution is no longer important, as you say? Are you telling me now that a patriot must not be prepared to die for his country anymore? Is that what you're telling me? So if that's what you're telling me, let's hear it. And it's so ironical, as I said, that he penned those words, and he's a commissioner on the government side, on the Electoral Commission.
He's in a position,
and he's in a position to influence, and he's denying people free, fair, and transparent election.
All right.
And
so
I think what has to happen now, if you may ask, a call to action. Where do we go? And I think the call to action, in my mind, is from the time that a hearing is a date is given and it's determined, and that matter is determined into the courts. Every Dominican that can avail themselves should attend and enter the court to hear this case. They should make it their business to go to the courts on that day and pack the courts to listen to the case and the arguments presented on both sides.
I think we should raise funds and put some ads on Q95 and TDN and other media.
Yes.
Announcing,
and tell people the case is coming up tomorrow, Monday morning. Find yourself in Roseau. You need a ride, we'll get a bus to get you down to Roseau. Come and
in addition to that, make it about Alec Lawrence and his book.
Absolutely. And his book.
Advertise it
and use those very same quotes.
And use the words.
Use his words. That's his words. It's not your words. It's not my words. These are his words.
I think every day it should be a really blast of ads, and say that it's sponsored by the book. Get a copy of the book, and this is what the book says.
That's what the book say. We are going by the book.
And say
We're
who
not doing
wrote the book.
anything
The book is
unlawful
in
or
the public
different. We
domain.
are going by the book. We agree with you what the book says, and we're going by the book.
By the book.
And as patriots, we should be a patriot of our
Our
country,
actions are being guided by what is written in the
guided
book.
by what you said, the book. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is part of the struggle or the challenge, I would say, that sometimes the folks have home in terms of, one, strategy and messaging.
In crafting a message, yeah.
Crafting a message.
For sure.
Because, people who advertise do it very well on television. You see that conflict sort of shoes, you see it 100 times, and eventually people go buy the shoe, buy the conflict. So it all has to do with messaging, crafting, and your strategy.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
We're not going to disclose everything here tonight, but clearly that is something. And
we should launch a campaign and go to Ali Clarence to ask him to sponsor it, because it's going to raise the sales of his book.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But anyhow, Alvin, we almost an hour and a half, so I think we need to start wrapping it up.
Sure.
You and I can talk for hours, but we shouldn't subject our audience.
We don't want to keep our audience that long. Although I know I know Dee is a regular, and I'm sure she's enjoying that. Good evening, Dee. How are you? It's always good to see you.
Yeah, she's a regular every Wednesday.
Yes.
And Myrna and Owen Prosper and these people, Sophie and Maggie.
But I would say too, though, that those of us who are hearing this thing, and I know folks can always go back and listen to the program, you need to share the information. One of the things I would encourage people to do is, if possible, to get a copy of that book. I tried to see if it was on Amazon. I didn't see, but I'm sure could find copies of it. He may want to how they say, can you publish a book and then pull it back? I don't know.
He go and buy every copy that's available and put it in his basement.
But seriously though, I think folks must stay engaged. This is a very important case for Dominica and for those who are there now and those who are to come. Election has consequences. The CCJ again said very, very clearly in their reporting that electors lists are central to the legitimate or lawful elections, and they're the central element of a democracy. So again, it is a case brought on behalf of the people of Dominica.
Yeah.
It's not anything to do with partisan. It is saying that as we see it, as we present it, folks' constitutional rights were breached, and as such, they have a right to go to the courts and to seek redress on the two last elections. And I'm glad the question was raised. That has to be done as a matter of urgency before any other elections is called. And that was one of the points that the CCJ made, that they saw there were taints, and they say, moving forward in the future, we should not have another election until those taints are removed. Taints being all of those irregularities that presented itself in the last two elections. So, Tony, thank you again for the opportunity.
Certainly, always a pleasure.
And explain so the persons can understand what is happening. I hope I was able to provide some clarity and explain the process, as well as to advise what is at stake.
Thank you, Alvin, and thank you for what you do, and thank you to the folks who are bringing this to the fore, because it's a discussion that needs to be had. And as we said, of course we have a hope for an outcome, but it does not matter the outcome. The idea is that we need to be able to preserve the systems and the institutions that exist in our community, to put guardrails on the people that we give power. Otherwise, if there are no guardrails, it's about a person's individual.
That's right.
Yeah.
So
thank you so much, and good night, everyone. Alvin, I wish you all the best. I think you guys should come back often. Until this is resolved, you should come back often. No, I'm serious, because the more people hear the messages, the more they understand what's going on. And the more and we need their support. We definitely need their support on this one. D says, great initiative, Alvin. It's encouraging and gives the people hope, and that is so true. We have to be able to show that there is something to do. You know, like sometimes if you not, you don't feel like it, if you lie down in your bed and give in to the feeling, get nothing done. But if all you do is get up and go brush your teeth, after you brush your teeth, you might go make some tea. After you make some tea, you might take and read a book. And next thing you know, you might be taking a walk, you're in the park enjoying nature, you run into a friend, and
Yeah.
but all of that, you would have missed all of that if you had just stayed laying down in your bed feeling sorry for yourself. And so
And yeah, and like you said earlier in your earlier comments, if you don't get the right people, if your process is skewed and you can't get the right people elected into government to serve, then you have rogues and vagabonds
yeah,
getting
yeah.
into office to
And
serve bright
scams and
people,
scoundrels.
right, to serve
Yep,
the people, and you know what that can lead to.
yep, yep. So let's hope for the best and all the best in the endeavor. We encourage folks to reach out and to support, and we hope we see a speedy resolution. We hope that the system understands what urgency means and say, oh, I intended to do this, but the independence distract me. Let me go and take care of that tomorrow first thing.
Mhm.
Giving them the
Abs-
benefit of the doubt. That's what happened. So,
abs-
folks, there you have it. As usual, when Alvin comes, he comes with a lot of information, really rich, really deep, and irrefutable because he comes prepared, and that's what I think is the level of respect that he shows to this program and to you, the audience. And so we really appreciate that. We don't have folks who just come and just talk from the top of their head or just say something and they cannot prove it. Or no, Alvin comes and he comes with respect. So he's prepared to to he puts in the time and he puts in the effort so that when he comes with a complete package and presents it to you and puts it in front of you and gives you the opportunity to ask questions, to interrogate, to think about it. And that's what we appreciate. Alvin, we appreciate you so much. And you, the audience, we appreciate you a lot as well. If you're listening to us on YouTube or Facebook or any one of those other social media, give us a like, give us a follow it, turn on the notification so you can know when the other programs are coming on. Don't forget this Saturday at 7 p.m. Dissect Season 5 is beginning. And on Monday at 8:30, Miss Kathy Robinson is going to have a fourth installment of her program, The Youth Effect. So stay tuned, folks. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we keep our eyes on what's going on with this young man from Wesley, who reports us saying that he was picked up by the police this morning. And we stand ready to see if there's anything we can do to assist. All right. So good night, and let's do this again next week, Wednesday.